Hi everyone, I hope you can see the presentation. So, that was a perfect introduction. Thank you very much. So I'm Gianpaolo Pileggi, and I'm the coordinator of the Work Package 5 in the Long COVID project. And today I am presenting some slides regarding the application of AI in precision medicine and also about trust in AI, so the explainability of the model. So all of this is declined into the context of what we are developing in the long COVID project. As I said before, this is the content. First, I will just give a brief introduction, an high-level introduction of what AI is, and then I will go a bit deeper on how AI can be applied to personalized medicine, and then decline a bit into the long COVID opportunity to use these AI models. And in the end, the last section, which will be also sort of introduction for the last talk, is how we can trust the AI models. So what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is a technology that enables computer to simulate the human thinking. So in a broader scope, we can say that AI was born to simulate the human learning, the comprehension, the problem solving, decision making. So all those activities that a human can do. But there's been a long way for improving the technologies and the algorithm, and we still have a long way to go before we can really replicate human intelligence, but we are moving forward. The first real application was during the 80s when the concept of machine learning and the first machine learning techniques were born. And machine learning consisted of algorithms that can be trained by labeled data and perform prediction on this data. So we need some sort of sample data. Let's imagine that all these points you see are data which can be used as a training for the model. And then the model will learn how to, for example, classify each of these dots into the proper class. It's pretty generic, but just to show you, just a more concrete example, imagine to have pictures of dogs and cats. A machine learning algorithm can learn how to classify a new picture into a dog or a cat. Then we move a bit forward, and this is when there was really the huge explosion of AI algorithms, more properly the deep learning algorithms. Deep learning algorithms are a machine learning model that simulates a bit more how human brain function and how does it work. Because really they simulate the concept of neurons in the human brain. We know that neurons communicate each other by sending signals, but these signals can be passed only when a certain threshold is overcome by the signal. And the same occurs with the artificial neurons, which are just mathematical entities. So the neurons receive inputs, and then there is an activation function with based on which the model decides to transmit the signal to the next neuron. Just like in our brain, there are tons of connection on neurons, so we have a neural network. The same can be realized into the AI model, and we can have this artificial deep neural network where we have inputs given to this set of neurons, organized by multiple layers. And then after the training is complete, the deep learning algorithm can provide a prediction based on a test sample. I talked just into this slide regarding generative AI because we are not touching that, and probably we are not using for the main predictive tool in the long COVID project. But just to update you regarding this, which is the most recent frontier in AI, and any of us is probably using that today because ChatGPT, Llama are all based on this class of models. So what is a generative model? It's a deep learning model, also sometimes called a transformer, that can generate original context. So these models receive a huge amount of data. You can just think some models are trained on everything that is on the internet, and then they provide some original content. They generate some original knowledge based on that. And this is what happens when we ask a question to ChatGPT and it replies. Moving a bit deeper now, I introduce a bit what is AI, but how do we apply in general AI in medicine? To be honest, there is a lot of application, and it's really impossible to classify all of them in one topic, in one talk. But just to give some insight, there are different technologies that adapts to different aspects of healthcare. For example, there are the so-called convolutional neural networks, which are used mostly for computer vision tasks. And so in medicine, they analyze, for example, medical imaging like magnetic resonance or computed tomographies. Then we have techniques for natural language processing for text and information extraction or chatbots. Now these are being replaced a bit by the large language models, which are sort of heirs to the old BERT models. And then we have, for example, graph convolutional networks, which are used to put in contact proteins or active principle of drugs. They may be used in drug discovery, for example. There are many applications, and this is also this is an impact also in the real world, because this is a chart which is updated here at 2022, but the trend is still the same. So the number of AI medical devices which were approved by FDA has risen significantly. And this is important because this means that these algorithms are not just closed into the research world, but they are used, they can provide benefit to the patients. And then once I introduce a bit of AI in healthcare, then let's define what is AI and what is personalized medicine. So the first definition that we can find on the European portal regarding personalized medicine is that it is a medical model that can use phenotypes and genotype information for tailoring the right therapeutic strategy to the right person. In other words, precision medicine is something that creates a dedicated treatment for a specific patient based on his information. And we have this kind of information also in healthcare. We already accumulated and keep accumulating tons of different modalities or type of information. For example, we have, as I said before, imaging, we have electronic health records, we have summary from the doctors, we have genomics profiling, we have proteomics and other omics information. So all these different modalities cover complementary information from a patient. Let's just think about magnetic resonance is more focused on the soft tissues, computed tomography on the hard tissues, with proper exceptions, I know, but it is like what I mean. We can have different information by looking at the different modalities, and leveraging on this data is fundamental if we want to reach a proper precision medicine. A concrete example on how it can apply it. Here, there are some charts that I took from paper in which they use, in this case, an artificial intelligence model to aggregate or embed, is a proper technical terms, all this information into a latent representation, a condensed representation. And once you have this condensed representation, you can, like the last image say, and the last point, you can use this condensed information to train a predictive model for stratify patients, to classify which patient will benefit from a specific therapy or will not benefit, and so will remain in the observation phase. And this is the most natural application that AI can give to precision medicine. In the context of the long COVID project, we aim to follow the same pattern. So we had to study the mechanism behind the long COVID syndrome, and we plan to use the different modalities that Dr. Lira talked before. So we have these different modalities that come from the different partners, like immunophenotyping, microbiome, or genome HLA typing studies. So all this information, coupled, for example, with the questionnaire information that are provided by Unibus and WHOS, can be used to just create a condensed representation of the patient. How we want to do that? We want to use this multimodal information for starting from the patient information. Using our technology, we want to generate a graph representation. So we will represent patients as graphs, where when I say graph, you have to imagine multiple entities, nodes connected each other, with the closer nodes being essentially similar patients. And all these nodes will contain all the multimodal different information that we will obtain thanks to the study. What we will do, it will be to use our AI engine, which really performs this embedding of the information, this reduction to a compressed space, and then we will use this compressed information to perform stratification of the patient. This is only one of the things we want to achieve, because I think one of the most important feature of the long COVID project and in general of the EU-funded project is that there could be a co-creation between the technical people and the clinical people. And this is what we started to do. We started having some co-creation workshop together with them, where we try to find the most relevant endpoint from a clinical perspective. So what a clinician would like to see predicted by the AI algorithm. But at the same time, we studied together with the technical part which one of these clinical outcomes is feasible given by the data. Because remember that AI is not magic. AI is strictly tailored to the quality and the quantity of data which is available. The third point, this is also very important and something we are looking for, is to use this multimodal data to extract novel biomarkers from the combination of these different modalities. But, and this is the last slide of the first part, how can we trust that these biomarkers are relevant or are true? In order to do that, we need to understand what the models do. We don't need to classify the model as black boxes. And this leads us into the second part, which is the trust in AI. I open with this because I think that the trust in AI is directly and strictly related to the healthcare world. Because which role should AI have? Should the AI model be a decision-making or a decision support? Who is responsible when the diagnosis or the treatment is wrong? And the last question is, which competence should a next generation physician have? Should they be continue being like the classical physicians, or should they also study in parallel to learn more and more about AI and how model works? These are open questions. I'm not answering to this, but I think this is really food for thought. Maybe also part of this can be we will start answering during the project, where we will present the first models to the clinician, and maybe they will start using those, and we will receive the feedback. And then we can also start understanding if they trust or not the AI. In general, in my opinion, trust can be achieved through two main modalities. The first is to have a model explanation and interpretation technique. So there are techniques that allow to make the user understand why the model gave a certain answer. But also the second point, which is really important and will be dealt by Mauro in the next topic, is legislation, because it's also important to have regularization of the various processes that generate prediction through AI. As I say, we now focus on this first point. How do we trust black box model? To do that, there are explainable techniques, which we call explainable AI or XAI techniques, which focus on explaining the meaning behind the prediction. There are several techniques. What can be a gradient based, because a neural network works by projecting the gradient up to the output, and then looking back at this gradient, we can understand which neuron was the most important, and that's why we had that prediction. But we also have other techniques like LIME or the counterfactor. Counterfactor is really funny because if we know which specific neuron or which part of the network is more trained, is more active in the prediction, if we change some of the condition, we can try to fool the neural network. And so using that, we can create some safety measure to prevent this fooling and to make the algorithm more solid. Here is just some example that show that depending on the context, we can have different interpretation. In general, by looking at data types, So if you're looking at text, if you're looking at images, if you're looking at tabular data, we have different way of understanding how the model works. For example, with the images, we can look at some saliency map. Let's say that we're classifying some numbers, like we want to put as input a number, a picture of a number one, and the neural network will classify the number one. And why did it do that? Because there are some like graphical features that allow to show that. And you can see that small images. But also not talking about number, let's just look at that portrait on the bottom part. There are some features in the hidden layers of the network that gives you some hint. So it understands the gender because there are some traits in the facial shape, or it explains the age because near the mouth or near the eyes there are some more or less highlighted features, which could be wrinkles, for example. And this is really important because in general, this could also risk to bring some bias. Let's put an example that we have the entire electronic health records of the patient, and then we put all of the information, we perform a prediction. Then we may look at the feature importance, which is also a way of looking at which feature are the most important for a specific model. And then we see, for example, age and sex are the most important. It may be there are some conditions, some diseases in which age is relevant. But at the same time, there have been some studies that's shown that, okay, sex or race was important, but then this resulted actually in the opposite, that the data set was biased. This is really the challenge that whoever studies machine learning and goes deeper into predicting and extracting biomarkers needs to take into account that that biomarker, that important feature, is really related to the population, and that is not a bias. And this is also what we want to do in the context of this long COVID project, because once we have the trained model, we will look also at the feature importance. And since this important feature will come from different modalities, we really expect to find something into the some novel biomarker that combines all of the modalities. Last slide before I pass the torch to Mauro is, as I said before, the second aspect, the normative, so the legislation of AI. Europe is the first entity that finalized a draft, a legislation for the regularization of AI, and it proposed the AI Act, which is a risk-based approach that classify also the AI algorithm depending on the risk. So there is those algorithms which are without no risk, and then we can go up to the pyramid on the prohibited AI system that we cannot really use because they cannot guarantee the safe. This is my last slide, and I thank you very much for your attention. I hope I didn't put much sleep on you, and I pass the torch to Mauro. Thank you very much.